Welcome to the HR Kyle podcast, your go-to source for insightful discussions on leadership, job searching, and all things human resources. I'm your host, HR Kyle, and each week we dive deep into topics relevant to professionals seeking to elevate their careers and organizations. Whether you're a seasoned leader, a job seeker navigating the ever-changing landscape of employment, or an enthusiast looking to stay ahead of the curve, this is the podcast for you. Join me as we explore practical strategies, share expert insights, and engage in meaningful conversations that empower you to succeed in today's dynamic workplace. So, adjust your headphones and let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another edition of the HR Kyle podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Patrick Smith of HR Kyle. And we've got another wonderful episode scheduled for you today. Of course, we put a lot of thought into these. We also generate a lot of feedback from our episodes. So we try to make sure that we're staying in tune with those things that you're interested in. And this topic really is no different. Today, we're going to be talking about workplace safety. And don't think of this as just another discussion around slips, trips, and falls and making sure you have a evacuation plan and all of those good things. So that's going to be a part of this discussion, but it's going to talk about overall workplace safety from a physical, mental, and psychological standpoint. So we're looking forward to this conversation today. In segment one, Becki and I are going to talk through the topic from our perspective. We've got some interesting talking points to go through. And then in segment two, our guest is a world-renowned expert around the topic of workplace safety from exactly the perspective that we're talking about today, the physical, mental, and psychological. And especially in her work, she focuses a lot on the mental and psychological. So we're excited about this show today. We're going to take a quick break, talk about some things that we're up to here that we want to make sure you know about, and then we're going to be right back to talk about workplace safety. Greetings, I'm Kyle Smith, and I'm here to offer you a speaking experience that goes beyond the ordinary. With a rich background in leadership, HR, and personal development, I bring a unique blend of expertise and passion to every presentation. Whether it's leadership unleashed, well-being at work, or career mastery, I delve into topics that empower individuals and organizations to reach their fullest potential. What sets me apart? Proven expertise, an engaging delivery style, and actionable insights that drive positive change. But here's the kicker. I don't just offer a one-size-fits-all approach. I customize my content to meet the specific needs and goals of your event. So let's elevate your event together. Contact me now to reserve your date and unlock the full potential of your audience and organization. Don't miss out on the opportunity to inspire greatness. Visit hrkyle.com today. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed that brief break and learning about all the wonderful things that we're up to here and how we can help you in your career and in your organization. As usual, Becki is going to be joining me today to talk through this topic of workplace safety. So Becki, welcome back as always, and the show is yours to be in charge of.
Thank you, Kyle. This is an interesting topic today, and I like all the different directions you're going with the safety issues, something that most people don't really talk about and aren't familiar with probably.
No, they really aren't, and it gets overlooked to the detriment of organizational success. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we talked about it.
Yeah. Well, let's get going and let's start with physical safety. So what are some of the most common physical safety challenges in the workplace today? And then how can leaders proactively address those?
Well, some of the most common are slips, trips, and falls. We talk about that. It's amazing how common these are in all types of work environments, not just manufacturing or logistics or theirs where you have a very physically active workforce. This is an issue in all different types of work environments. And it really comes down to, like we talk about so often with safety, it's just preventative measures. Go through your work areas and make sure that there aren't hazards that might cause someone to slip, trip, or fall. So those are things that might be a problem in the flooring. It might be cords that are sticking out. It might be something that's in the way, so individuals can't traverse through your organization, but it's something that presents a hazard that you would probably notice if you had a good, keen eye for what you were looking for. So
Right.
that's the physical things to look about. The other thing would be just the safety of your facility. I think especially, unfortunately, in this day and age, there's a lot of risk to people that shouldn't be on your facility grounds or inside your facility, and they gain access because security or access to the building is lax. So it's maintaining that physical security of the building. So you know who's on your facility, you know why they're there, and you're avoiding situations to where they could place others in jeopardy or place the physical structure in jeopardy. So I know that's a big issue as well, just controlling access to your facility grounds and your facility buildings. So
Right. And
those are
so
a
many of our
couple.
so many of our buildings already, so many of our buildings are, locked down, so people have to get in. But then there's always that chance of somebody, slipping up and not being as secure as they need to be on one day. We have to be careful with that.
Well, and it's unfortunate we have to be paranoid, but I always have to think too, if it's a business operation, everyone should have a reason to be there. And it's perfectly fine to make sure that everyone's reason for being there. And you have that right. If someone's there and they shouldn't be, then that needs to be addressed.
Right. And
These.
I worked in a school where I wasn't even allowed to open the door for somebody coming up to the door. If it was a teacher, a staff member who worked there, but as an adult, kids were never allowed to. As an adult, I was not allowed to open the door for them. They had to wait to buzz in and let in by the office.
Well, and that's the thing. Anybody that has good intentions is most likely they're going to go the direction that they should. So if it's a school, for example, they should know to go to the main entrance.
Right.
If someone's not going to a main entrance, they're either really not using their head or they're there for a reason that they shouldn't be. And I think the same holds true inside of companies. Again, they may not be there to harm anyone, but their being there may cause harm.
Right.
I've always spoken about the fact that we need to know who's inside of our facilities in case we need to do an evacuation. We need to make sure that person gets out of the building.
Yes.
If it's after hours,
Yes.
we need to know who's in there in case an emergency would happen to that person.
Right.
So we're looking out for their safety as well. And the biggest thing here, and I've seen it in practice, we all hear this, but I've seen this is one of the biggest ways safety gets derailed, is when your leadership doesn't walk the walk. So they allow certain measures
Right.
to be lax.
Right.
They don't follow the rules. They don't support it. They speak up in some cases and undermine the safety efforts in some way, shape, or form.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. And then again, if you're in roles where safety is part of your responsibility, you have to gain that executive support for this. Because the first time one of your leaders doesn't follow one of the safety directives, I guarantee you someone else is going to notice it. And the first thing they're going to say is, well, if they don't have to follow it, why should I?
Exactly. And then it trickles down.
And
Yeah.
then it's a breakdown. Yep.
Well, moving to the second one, you had talked about the physical safety, about preventative measures of being proactive. So it's interesting because emotional safety, which is the second question, I don't know that we or leaders really are proactive with the emotional safety. So why is that often overlooked in workplace discussions? And again, what can organizations do to create a more supportive environment?
Well, I think part of it, one of the reasons why it's overlooked is it's something that's not tangible. I can look and see that someone has tripped and fallen and they've gotten hurt. It's not always visible to me that someone has been disrespected or mistreated in some way to where they're not as productive, they're not feeling as good about the situation. And unfortunately, we as humans just by and large are not observant to that. Because, and especially in organizations, we're taught to be observant to things that are measurable, that I can see, that are tangible. And that's all true to a point. But I guarantee you, companies lose more employees due to emotional insecurity than they ever do to physical insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Because we as humans have a natural instinct to avoid physical dangers in a lot of cases. But unfortunately, we don't, and most situations don't enable us to avoid situations that compromise our emotional safety. Because too often, and we both know this, that emotional unsafe situation usually is coming from a boss or an immediate coworker.
Right.
So what's our option there?
Yeah, exactly. You can't go to your boss.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what I see, body language. I mean, you walk into your office and you see a brand new employee who is hidden away by herself, doing her work, not talking to anybody. There's something there that needs to be happening with leadership.
I've always said that, and it's part of my qualities of an effective leader. One of the biggest things in leadership is, and it's an old principle, but it still holds true, walk around, see your group. Where there are changes in behavior, there's a root cause to that. And like you said, in that case, to where we've known that person and they've typically have been out and kind of interacting with others and so on, but all of a sudden they've had a whole week where they've been locked away and there's really no reason for that. Something's going on. It's either something happening in the workplace or it's something happening outside the workplace. But either way, and we know this to be true too, that person's productivity is being affected, period.
Yep. Well, and another point that I thought of is, and again, this goes back to leadership. But if you see your employees are just sitting in their offices all day, we know you can't do that. You've got to get up and move and do other things. And it may be where the leader has to give different assignments to the employees to get them up and moving or out of the building.
Well, or just check in. Hey, I've noticed that, you spend a lot of time just sitting in your office. And I know if that's me, after a while, that becomes unhealthy just for my state of being. Joe, is there something wrong? Is there something I can help you with? Is there something going on that doesn't seem like how you normally are?
Right.
And it's
Yes, all
okay
good
to ask
points.
that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Moving on to number 3, this is psychological safety. What role do you think psychological safety plays in fostering innovation and collaboration?
Well, one of the biggest things is that person feeling safe enough to make suggestions and come up with ideas without facing ridicule or being made fun of or mocked for the ideas that they come up with.
Yep.
Because I don't know any human, I've yet to come across a person that said, hey, every time I come up with an idea, you laugh and make fun of it. So I'm going to come up with more ideas. No one
Exactly.
in the history of mankind has ever said that.
Nope.
But it's
Or
that,
you hear, that's the way we've always done it. This is
yeah.
the way we've always done it.
Yep. Well, and we know a lot of companies that have said that over time. Sears, Kmart.
Yeah. And look where they are now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 That's the death knell of any company, especially now with how quickly things change and how much they turn over. And I'm amazed at that, how common that is. I've talked to organizations, this, and they'll say, oh, we're having trouble recruiting and so on. And I'll start suggesting ideas and they're all being shot down. Well, how about if you did this? Well, no, that's not going to work here. How about this? No, that won't work.
Yep.
Well, then you've resigned yourself to the fact that you are going to keep doing things the way that you're doing them. And you know what? You're going to get the same results.
Yeah.
So, psychological safety must be given if you're going to have new ideas introduced.
Right.
And, that's from everyone. And the psychological safety too, on the other side is that people don't feel threatened to adopt new ideas. There's not going to be this, see what happens when we try to do something different here. There can't be any of that either. There can't be the I told you so's.
Right.
We've got to be willing to say, you know what? I'm glad we tried something new. We needed to. This may not have worked, but you know what? We're going to keep trying at it until something does. Because I think about all the great inventions, and I forget how many iterations that Edison went through before he invented the incandescent light bulb. but it's literally thousands. Now, if there'd have been some fool there saying after about 20 times, come on, Edison, what do you do? You have no idea what you're doing here. That's not going to motivate him to invent the light bulb. Thank God those people weren't there when some of these inventions were coming up, or with the Wright brothers. Same situation.
Yeah.
Because they went through lots and lots of iterations of their invention before they got it right. And we as organizations, sometimes we have to think of that too. We have to have the tolerance for failure. People have a lot of tolerance for success, but they have very little tolerance for failure. But what failure does is it educates us. It informs us.
So besides the obvious, which we know, how can leaders build this collaboration, innovation, and not make people feel that way within their teams?
Well, for one, they've got to realize that organizations function best from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. If you're a top-down leader, I've rarely seen organizations that were innovative when they were top-down. Meaning all the ideas come from the leader. He or she is the gatekeeper for ideas, whether they're implemented or not. If that's your environment, you're not going to be innovative. You're just not, because you got one person. It completely disintegrates the power of a team and the power of unique ideas and these things we always talk about diversity. It blows that all out of the water. It's not going to be there. So they've got to walk the walk. They've got to listen to other people. They've got to encourage it. They've got to be comfortable with failure and having to recalibrate and approach it in a different way.
Yep.
So there's got to be a certain tolerance there.
Right. Yeah, great conversation on this today. And just to kind of wrap up, how do you think that the three of these, physical, emotional, and psychological, how do they intersect? And why is it crucial that these happen in the workplace?
Well, in the most successful organizations, they do intersect. So let's keep that in mind. If you've got an organization that you want to ultimately be its most successful, its most productive, its most engaged, you have to have all three firing. If you've got one of the three or two of the three, just like with a car, you're just not firing on all cylinders. There's going to be that miss. So people feel physically safe, but they don't feel emotionally and psychological. Well, yeah, they're going to come in and out of the building every day and they're going to show up, but they're not going to contribute. Well, let's say then they feel physically safe and psychologically safe, but they're not emotionally. Well, then they're still going to be there. They're going to do really well in their jobs, but they're never going to come up with new ideas. They're not going to come up with new ways of doing things or try to innovate. Yep. So wherever you have a gap, whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological, there's going to be something missing. And again, if they're not psychologically safe, then you've got all of these ideas floating around but never get put into practice because no one's really engaged. They show up, they come up with ideas, but they never get put in practice or people don't follow through. So the only way you can have them feel safe, feel engaged, come up with new ideas, and really run with them is if you have all three.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yep. Well, thank you again for having this conversation. And you always have such great ideas and thoughts behind these workplace issues and concerns. Thanks for having me here.
Well, glad to have you as always, Becki. I appreciate you hosting. It allows us to have a wonderful conversation and do a great job. And folks, as always, we thank you for tuning into segment 1 and listening to our thoughts. We hope we've generated some thoughts for you as well and some ideas. We're always happy to talk about that. If you want to share your comments in the comment section or reach out to us via our website, hrkyle.com, we can talk about these ideas further. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you make your environment more physically, emotionally, and psychologically safe, certainly reach out. Well, after we get back from this break, we're going to have a special guest that's going to talk with us further about safety, and she is a world-renowned expert on this, so we're looking forward to this conversation. So we'll be right back.
Are you stuck in a job you hate? Dreaming of a career that excites you? It's time to turn those dreams into reality with Get the Job You Love by Kyle Patrick Smith, also known as HR Kyle. Discover proven strategies to land your dream job, master interviews, and stand out from the crowd. Packed with expert advice and practical tips, Get the Job You Love is your ultimate guide to career success. Available now on Amazon and other online retailers. Don't wait. Start your journey to a fulfilling career today. Get the job you love, because you deserve a job you love.
Are you a business owner looking to build a thriving team? Or perhaps a job seeker on a quest for your dream career? Look no further than HR Kyle. HR Kyle is your trusted partner for all things human resources. We're not just about services, we're about success. For businesses, HR Kyle offers tailored HR solutions from talent acquisition to compliance support. We're here to help your team flourish. And for the job seekers, HR Kyle provides personalized career guidance and direction that only a seasoned HR professional can offer. We'll help you find that perfect job match. Don't settle for less. Choose HR Kyle and unlock success today. Visit us at www.hrkyle.com. HR Kyle, unlocking potential, empowering careers, transforming business. Hello and welcome to segment 2 of the HR Kyle podcast. And again, I'm your host, HR Kyle, and I hope you enjoyed that brief break. We like to keep you updated on the things that we're up to and how we can service you. So certainly feel free to reach out if you're in need of HR and or leadership coaching and consulting. But let's get back to the theme of this episode, which is about fostering safe and respectful workplace cultures. And I'm fortunate to welcome an expert into our studio for segment 2. She's the founder and CEO of Osso Safe, and their role is consultation and training, and they work with individuals and organizations to really create a world where people feel safe where they live, work, and play. She's also a TEDx speaker and an author on the subject of safety and respect. Obviously, she brings a great deal of knowledge and expertise to this topic. So I'm very proud to have Sabrina Osso join me today on the HR Kyle podcast. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We've been looking forward to talking with you. So, Sabrina, first question, I tried to cover some of the things that you're involved in and some of the things that you do, but you do a lot of things. You're a very busy person and you're making a really profound impact on the world. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. As you mentioned, I am a TEDx speaker. I'm also a real estate agent and a children's book author, like you mentioned, on creating and maintaining respect in homes, workplaces, and schools. I have a teaching background, actually, also. I taught for about 15 years. 5 of those were like regular elementary school through high school, and then 10 of those years were dance. I taught dance from pre-K through high school. And yes, we're working hard at Osso Safe to combine education and technology to create and maintain respect in homes, workplaces, and schools. And I was recently actually, not that I forget, but it was fairly recent. I was a recipient of an award by the Women's Federation for World Peace. It's the Her Story Award for my commitment to helping children to be safe at home and for promoting positive relationships at home. So I'm very honored to have been to be a recipient of that award.
Well, and Sabrina, thank you for sharing us a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing and the impact that you're making on the world. And I'm glad that you mentioned that award because I did see that as part of your profile on LinkedIn. I think it's important for our audience to hear that because we tend to live in a world now, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this, that there's the feeling that there is less safety, less respect in a lot of these environments that you mentioned, the living, the working, and play. What's your perspective on that?
Good question. I think respect has to be practiced. I think it has to be, and we're very big on that at Osso Safe. So it has to be practiced at home, at work, and at school, because those are the three places that we spend most of our time. We're born, we go home, we grow up a little bit, we go to school, we grow up a little bit more, and we go to work. So, and it has to be practiced. And I have to say, however you are at home, you are at work. However you are at work, you are at home. So there's really no separation. Yes, people wear masks, but rest assured, if you're violent, abusive, chaotic, dysfunctional in any way, those masks are quickly lifted. So we feel at Osso Safe that respect has to be practiced, especially if you come from abuse or violence, if you will. And yeah, it's a way of life. It's the main ingredient to safety, we say at Osso Safe. Yeah.
Well, Sabrina, thank you for walking us through that. And I think you do make a clear distinction there. And I see this all the time in the work that I do from an HR and leadership perspective. There's very little distinguishing features between, again, as you mentioned, how the person is at home and how they are at work. So it really does come down to that practice and being respectful, being safety focused and so on, making it a way of life. Now, to move this conversation more towards the workplace, how do you think, or how would you recommend, or how do you coach organizations to implement your strategies to foster safer, more respectful workplace cultures?
Yes, well, we make sure that there are policies in place in the workplace. So we go over, for example, with the HR, the human resource person at a company, what policies do you have right now? Are you covering? We're on the East Coast, so there has to be the New Jersey Safe Act implemented, and that is when you can take off for we don't like to use the word domestic violence. We prefer to say home violence. So anything that has to do with home violence, the New Jersey Safe states that you are entitled to, I believe, 20 days of unpaid leave to take care of those matters. And actually, that's a small amount. Actually, a person would need more than that. But in New Jersey, it is around 20 days. And then we ask the staff, the managers, what are the problems? What are the problems that you're facing? And making taboo subjects untaboo. For example, sexual harassment, which is huge. It's a huge subject. It is, we feel at Osso Safe that it isn't, there's not enough training. I mean, only the basics are covered, but I feel like we at Osso Safe, we kind of make taboo subjects untaboo to make these discussions and kind of break the ice and say, yes, it may be embarrassing, it may be difficult, it may be kind of shameful, but they're necessary. And we suggest at Osso Safe to say, look, what we're teaching, especially when it comes to sexual harassment, this could help whatever children are in your life, whether whatever your home environment is. Like we get some pushback sometimes from more seniors, if you will, in the workplace, and we say, look, if you have children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, what you're going to learn in this seminar for sexual harassment, you can teach them, you can give them tools, you can empower them with some tips and how to report it and what it looks like. So I hope I answer the question.
Yeah, you certainly did, Sabrina. And to pick out a couple of points that you made there, One, when I received your request to join me on the show, one thing that immediately jumped out at me was something you brought out, and that is taking on these difficult subjects like you're talking about here, taking them head on, realizing that those who are listening are going to be a little bit uncomfortable and it might make them a little anxious or whatever, but there's a need for that to happen. And not to make a selfless plug, but I guess I'm going to. Uh, Part of my work is conducting anti-harassment training. And whenever I meet with leaders, whenever I meet with employees, I started off with that same thing, that we're going to talk about some things here that are going to make you uncomfortable, make you feel a little bit anxious. And that's okay. That's a good thing. These are not easy conversations to have, but I think as you're saying, they're necessary conversations to have. We've got to be able to get these issues out in the open, realize that they happen, and build plans to avoid these situations taking place so people can, as you said, live, work, play in safe environments.
Yes, yes. Thank you for echoing that. And, this could also uh, seep into any racism that happens in the workplace, or any, comments and jokes about, well, someone's religion, nationality, ethnicity, uh, virtually anything. So, especially office managers, they are tasked with kind of keeping it all together, for all of the employees, all of the staff. You nip it in the bud. You don't tolerate it. If there's extra training that needs to be done, well, we need to do that. And this is a practice, and we make the connection at Osso Safe in the workplace, with clients, that if the individual is hostile at work, well, chances are they're hostile at home.
Yep.
So to make that connection and express the link and say, look, maybe there's problems at home. Maybe this is how you are at home. It's wrong here and it's wrong at home. If you have children, you don't want to make these comments. Your kids will copy that. And then you'll be getting a call from the school, school principal. Well, did your son said this, your daughter said this, your son or daughter did this. And it comes from you, the parent / worker, employee.
Amen.
So thank you for echoing that.
Well, and I think you bring up a very valid point too, in that these situations, these circumstances are never isolated. There's never this person who is hostile or angry that doesn't have an impact and an influence around everyone they encounter, even if there's no direct conversation between that person and those around him.
Exactly. Yes, I like that they're not isolated, and they can be very hurtful, you may think that you're making a joke about someone, how they dress, how they look, and then that person will hear it, and you have a bit of a hostile work environment, and you don't want that. Again, it goes back to respect. Respect in the workplace, respect at home. You treat people with kindness, with you don't step over those boundaries, so and it makes for a better work environment all around, a better home environment. And this is indeed a practice for sure. We'll all be better off for it.
Well, and Sabrina, you and I are talking about it from an ethical standpoint. We've certainly dabbled a little bit on the legal side, but I think as employers, let's not lose sight of the bottom line, meaning the dollar effect of this. And with that in mind, how can companies use your insights to enhance their physical workplaces? So we've been talking about some of the practices and so on, but now we're talking about physical workplaces and workspaces so that it is conducive to employee well-being, which, as you and I both know, has a direct impact to the bottom line, the productivity of that employee.
Yes. And just to clarify, physical workspace meaning like the logistics or like a desk, the office, uh, or if it's working from home, is that what you mean? Like,
Yes.
when you say physical workspace?
Yep. It could be the dynamic of
Okay.
them working remotely. It could be how the workspace is laid out. Maybe it's an open office plan. Maybe they're in cubicles or offices. But exactly, you have that physical component.
Yes, yes. And again, it goes back to being respectful. Just because you are in your own cubicle, in your own office, Um, there should be no comments, no sexual innuendos, no anything that will make someone feel uncomfortable. And that's why these trainings are important. These regular trainings are important to kind of refresh, repeat, practice. I would say refresh, repeat, practice, because that way it's kind of embedded in one's consciousness and subconsciousness, if you will. I know like well lit areas are very important. You don't want anyone tripping on anything. You don't want anyone having an accident. You want parking to be close to the physical workspace. You don't want people walking very far to get to their car. So, or maybe have a buddy system, even, like a buddy system where you get accompanied to your car, if it's after hours, or keep the work before after hours, before it gets dark,
Yeah.
make that a rule. I think employees would appreciate that, where they care about their workers going home where it's not dark outside, and productivity will still happen. In fact, they will think, wow, my boss, my superior, my supervisor cares about me and my safety. When it's remote, I would say it's very important to keep, again, respect. Because if you're safe at home, you'll trickle that down into the workplace, as we mentioned a couple of times, and it's worth repeating, and vice versa, so, and just creating that space of, wow, I need a breather. That meeting was really difficult. It's okay to take a breather. You can take a breather. That's a healthy workspace as well. If you need to take time out in the bathroom, take a little longer, splash cold water on your face, breathe, like do some real conscious breathing. We teach all of that at Osso Safe in the workplace. It goes a long way for your mental health. It'll affect your physical workspace. It goes hand in hand, Kyle.
Well, Sabrina, so much useful, practical knowledge that you've shared with our audience. And again, I could hit on a lot of things, but I'm going to close it out with just a couple of things to leave this audience with. Clearly, Sabrina's advice is practice this. Have a starting point and practice it and work to get better. And then the other key point here is that it should be something that is integral to your operations as a business. Are those two fair assessments, Sabrina?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think that's a great summation.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and really getting to the heart of this issue and giving this audience some great advice. Again, this is Sabrina Osso. She's head of Osso Safe. She's the founder and CEO of that organization. This is something that she and her team focuses on day in, day out to create these safe environments, regardless of where we are. So, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. And folks, thank you as well for joining us for yet another edition of the HR Kyle podcast. Certainly appreciate you joining us each week and sharing in these discussions that we have with experts such as Sabrina. We certainly appreciate that. Please follow us if you're not doing that already. That allows you to keep up to date on the episodes as they come along. Otherwise, I want to leave you with these three things. Stay focused, stay grounded, and of course, stay tuned. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the HR Kyle podcast. We hope you found our discussion valuable and filled with insights that you can apply in your professional journey. Whether you're a business leader aiming to foster a thriving workplace or a job seeker looking to carve out your own path, remember that HR Kyle is the compass that can guide you towards success. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share it with your network. We're committed to being your trusted source for HR wisdom, and we look forward to having you back with us for our next episode. Remember, in the world of HR and professional growth, there's always room for progress. Be sure to visit our website at hrkyle.com. That's hrkyle.com to learn more about how we can help you meet your business and professional goals. So until next time, this is HR Kyle signing off. Stay motivated, stay informed, and keep reaching for those career goals. Music provided by bensound.com. That's bensound.com.